Oh, well.
The October 10th, 2012 meeting of the Missouri City Planning and Zoning Commission is called to order. We have a quorum here tonight. Nancy, have you got the ones that are missing? Okay. Moving on to the agenda item number 3, the minutes. Do I hear a motion that we approve the minutes as presented?
Make a motion.
All right, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as presented. Moving on, agenda item number 4, reports. I do not have any report for tonight. How about the rest of the commissioners? Anyone?
No, none.
Okay, hearing none. Moving on to agenda item 5, the staff reports. Director of Development Services, Gary?
No report, and if I had one, I would yield it all to Jennifer for her presentation and report.
Oh, okay. Item 5B, Planning Representative. Our lady in charge over there.
Okay, I'm going to be brief because I know we have a lot of people in the audience that are excited to get to our agenda items, so I'm going to be very brief. But as you all know, October is National Community Planning Month, which the American Planning Association, our professional organization, has celebrated for quite a while. And Missouri City, for at least the past 5 years, has participated and celebrated and highlighted the benefits and the contributions of planning to our city. And so I just want to talk very briefly about the topic for this month, which the American Planning Association has designated. This is a time to look at the changing face of America, and not getting into the politics of it or anything of that nature, but just looking at how certain trends we should consider as we're looking at our development codes, our comprehensive plan, and just how we plan for the future. And I do want to say as well, the mayor proclaimed the month of October at the last City Council meeting, National Community Planning Month, and that proclamation is on the back table if anyone wants to take a look at that. So, as you remember, earlier this year, Rice University released a report that found that the Houston region is one of the most ethnically diverse communities in the United States. And within that region, Missouri City was one of 2 suburbs in the Houston area that was actually more diverse, ethnically diverse, than the actual city of Houston. And if you remember, one of our planning and zoning commissioners participated in a report and gave an interview concerning that finding. So what does our diversity in Missouri City look like? Ethnically, generational, by household size. And what implications does this have on how we plan for our city's future and our built environment? So our ethnic diversity, very briefly, between the 2000 census and the 2010 census, our Black African American population increased by 27%. Our Asian population almost doubled and increased by 49%. And our Hispanic population, which includes all races, increased by 44%. Our generational diversity, between 2000 and 2010, our median age essentially remained the same, where a young but mature community with a median age of 35.5 in 2000 and 36.8 recorded in 2010. But we saw a 55% increase in the generations that are included as baby boomers and the silent generation. And then we also saw a significant increase, 22%, in Generation X, which I am proud to be a part of, in our millennial generation. Our household trends. Between 2000 and 2010, our average household size actually decreased from 3.09 persons to 3 persons per household. The total number of single-family housing units increased, roughly 6,500 units in our city. And keeping in mind, as we're shifting towards a more redevelopment focus, that 65% of our housing stock was constructed more than 30 years ago, between 1970 and 1999. So what are the implications? Well, Travis and I just returned from the Texas American Planning Association Conference in Fort Worth, and we were able to attend a keynote presentation by Mitchell Silver, who's the current president of APA. And he talked about this concept, and he's been talking about it for the past 2 years since the last census numbers were released. But the implications for our community, in the sense of our communities are graying, our communities are browning, and the rise of a single person household. So the graying of America, it's estimated by 2030 that 1 in 5 Americans will be over the age of 65. The browning of America, by 2050, it's estimated that there will be no majority race that's more than 50% of the population. And the rise of the single person household, by the mid-2020s, less than 20 years, single person household types, whether it's people who are widowed, whether it's people who are single by choice, whether it's people who are separated, those single person household types will be the predominant household types in America. So why is this important? Because it affects the way that we are planning for our future. It affects the way that we look at our development codes. It affects the way in which we make changes that impact the future. Where will people live? Where will these people live? Our trends are going up that our population will continue to increase. So do we have the diversity in housing that allows for the diversity in our people to live and stay within our community? Should I rent? Should I buy? That's the question. Ways to travel. How are these populations getting around our city? Whether it's driving a car, whether it's other forms of transportation, as our community ages, how are they being able to find their ways around the community? Public Works and Engineering right now is working on a pedestrian and bicycle mobility plan to address some of these issues, but these are the concerns that as planning commissioners and planners we have to keep in mind when we're looking at our goals and our comprehensive plan and our development codes. Our 2009 comprehensive plan, those who were on the CPAC committee and then also attended some of the public meetings might remember some of the conversations that came out of that. Two of the goals from our comprehensive plan that address this situation, a more cohesive city, pursuing strategies that make us more physically connected so that we can get around our community, do the things that we want to do, that we need to do, shop, leisure, get to work. Do those kind of things in a way that all of these different populations can access. A more varied community, to move beyond the bedroom community. Those of you who've been here for a while know that Missouri City was a bedroom community up until about the mid-1990s, where we started to diversify our tax base and have an emphasis on commercial and industrial development in appropriate locations. So that's one of the considerations that we're looking at. So what's the takeaway? Planning as a profession looks at the long-term consequences of our present actions. And part of that is understanding these trends in these populations, where we don't manage the market, we don't create the market, but we should consider how our policies, how our decisions, our recommendations impact these individuals, us, and our community, and how we choose to live in our city. So just like last year, there's more information if anyone's interested. Development Services website, the APA Houston section chapter, the Texas chapter of APA, and APA, the national organization, has a lot of information on this. And one thing I want to point out too that I didn't say, with these populations, like the generational population, looking at ways that you reach these populations is another important aspect, because we do a lot of public hearings and we do a lot of engaging the community, but thinking about social media, different tools that reach different generations that may not be able to come to traditional public hearings. One tool that neighboring communities are using are like an online town hall meeting. and just, diversifying how we communicate our message and getting people involved. So that was kind of my segue to say, remind you guys that we are going to be doing mini planning exhibits at grocery stores this month to talk to different people in the community. I always get a kick out of whether it's a high school student or a neighbor, and once they find out that I'm a city planner, and they have all kinds of ideas for what our communities should look like. So getting out into the community, we're going to be doing that this month, and then a walkabout tour for the commissioners to look at some of the projects that we've done throughout the year. So I would like to invite you all in our audience to join us for some light refreshments immediately following this meeting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5C, Public Works.
We have no reports, thank you.
No report. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to step to the podium and address anything which is not on our agenda for tonight? If you would like to do so, please be our guest. If you do, there will be no comments made by any of the commissioners at all, no questions answered or whatever. The laws here in the state of Texas say we can't do this. So if you'd like to do something, be our guest. All right, seeing none, moving on to agenda item 7, the consent agenda. 7A, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Pecan Estates at Anderson Springs, Section 2. 7B, consider approval of a final plat for Oyster Creek Crossing, Section 2. 7C, consider approval of a final plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek, Section 1A. 7D, consider approval of a final plat for Millwood at Riverstone. And 7E, consider approval of an abbreviated final plat for Zernigi Commercial Tract North Reserves G, H, K, and L. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion for approval. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Before we vote, Jennifer, I'd like to ask the question about the final plat designation on the plats themselves.
And having it placed on the plats.
Yes, there's, I think of the 3 final plats, the first one there, 7B, shows final plat. C and D do not.
And if the commission wants to make that as part of their motion, we can revise the staff reports to include that for those final plat applications and have them indicate final plat in the title block of all of those plats.
Do we need to make a separate motion on that or what?
You just include it as an addition to those final plat reports.
Okay,
I include it.
okay.
I second it.
All right, you seconded. All right, there's one other situation here. Agenda item number 7D. The acreage listed on the application shows 18.9836. When you actually figure the exact acreage in there, it comes out to be 18.9386. So it's 0.050 off. So that needs to be corrected.
We'll get with the applicant and we'll get that addressed.
Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, do I hear a motion that we approve the consent agenda?
It already has been.
Okay, and we got a second.
Right.
All right, any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Joe? I told you, no problem.
Thanks, sir.
No, it's a good project, no problem. Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 8, the public hearing and consideration for a zoning map amendment. 8A, public hearing to receive comments for or against a request to rezone an approximately 30.0 acre tract of land from LC3 Retail District to MF2 Multifamily Residential District. The subject site is located south of Trammell Fresno Road, east of the Fort Bend Parkway, and west of Fort Bend Independent School District's Hightower High School.
This is a request for a straight rezoning, meaning there's no deviations as a part of this application, but the applicant is requesting to rezone this 30-acre tract that's shown on the aerial map in front of you from LC3, which is a commercial zoning designation, to MF2, which is a multifamily zoning designation. Your staff report has outlined some of the existing development standards that we have for multifamily development, multifamily and condominium development, and that includes architectural standards, parking standards, different landscaping standards. And so if the commission does make a recommendation to support this rezoning application, then all of those standards that are under our current zoning ordinance would apply to the subject site if it's developed as multifamily. Staff does feel that this is consistent with the comprehensive plan in terms of the location of this site and of the need for various ranges of housing types. And so staff does recommend that this site be rezoned to multifamily. The rezoning does not it doesn't agree with our future land use plan that's also contained within our comprehensive plan. The future land use plan has it identified for a business park. That entire area is identified as potentially a business park setting. So it doesn't agree with the land use plan that's contained within the comprehensive plan. So if the recommendation is to rezone this property, then staff will bring back to you next month a request to amend the land use plan to agree with that rezoning request.
Are these classified as apartments?
Multifamily would allow for apartment development, yes. Now, what you have before you, the applicant has provided some concepts of, just to give you a visual of what a development could look like, but it's not locking this particular development into those concept plans because this is a straight rezoning request. They would have to conform with our standards as they exist, but what they've provided is just to kind of give you an idea of what the building footprints might be, the number of units based on the density allowance in an MF2 district for a 30-acre tract without looking at the actual buildable area of that tract could yield up to 600 multifamily units. But it's not locking that number in. They still have to actually design it for this site if there's a developer that decides to do it in the future.
Is the applicant here?
The applicant is here.
Yes.
Could we ask him a couple of questions?
Yes, I will. Do you have anything else to add, Jennifer?
No, staff's recommendation is to approve.
Okay. Clinton, come on up.
If I could interject one item. In the staff comments, we have a comment to obtain Toll Road Authority approval of the access to the Fort Bend Toll Road. The traffic impact analysis requires, and I'll read from it, reduce the length of the existing dividers, delineators on northbound Fort Bend Toll Road frontage road so they are terminated approximately 450 feet to the south of the proposed site access drive on Fort Bend Toll Road frontage road. It also says the proposed site access driveway on Fort Bend Toll Road frontage road must be approximately 35 feet wide with two 14-foot wide travel lanes and a 7-foot wide raised median. The driveway must be a Y-type design with a 50-foot turning radii. The Toll Road Authority has informed me about 4:30 this afternoon that they would not approve either of those comments, and Mr. Mike Stone with the Toll Road Authority is here if you have any questions of him.
Okay, is Mr. Stone here?
I'm right here.
Sir.
The property right now has an existing driveway that we installed when we did the third right turn lane.
Right.
And that driveway is, we built that at that time. That's the access that we agreed to give to the property owner at the time. He's free to make a request to the board, but we'd probably say, and the board would probably follow our recommendation, that that driveway is the access. That right turn lane, if you recall, there was a tremendous traffic issue down there, and so the delineators and the additional right turn to allow that free movement, it's pretty unlikely that we'll approve any request to change those delineators and how people make that right turn movement. We don't care one way or the other what the land use is. We always knew it was going to be some kind of commercial property. Anybody that goes there is probably a customer of the toll road, so that's good for us. But the access that's there on the at least the Fort Bend Parkway is the access that they're going to have. It's pretty difficult to mix a lot of traffic out and not impede that traffic from that right turn lane at rush hours. But we don't care if it's apartments or if it's restaurants or if it's warehouses. We really don't care. But the access is the access.
Well, what you're saying is that no matter what, y'all would deny that?
The access that we've already built there is all that they'll probably ever get. Now, they can make a request to the authority, and we'll consider anything, but the overriding concern that we have is keeping traffic moving on the parkway, and anything that impedes that, and particularly that right turn movement as it comes off of northbound Highway 6 to the northbound on the Fort Bend Parkway. No matter what we do for a crossing as we cross Highway 6, you know, we've got the extension going on now down to Sienna, and we plan on trying to get a project out next year to get some kind of crossing built across Highway 6. That's never going to change the number of cars turning off of Highway 6 going north on the Fort Bend Parkway. So we want to keep that movement as free as possible. Now, the recommendation that I saw on the traffic, they've made no request of the Toll Road Authority or shown any design yet of what they would actually want. But just the recommendation, the traffic study, you know, these are very preliminary results. So their final drawings would probably come back with some of, you know, driveway design that we'd have to look at.
Right.
But it's possible that they could fit a driveway design in there, maybe entrance only, no exit from there. That'd be fine with us. Or an exit, though, is always going to be difficult because exiting traffic slows down the traffic on the northbound. But we'll have to see what the final design looks like. But the access that's there is pretty much what they're going to have.
So you're saying that the exit off of the Fort Bend Parkway, we got that up there. Is that exit that we see there in the aerial photograph?
Yeah, there's a driveway right there where Jennifer's pointing to.
Okay.
That we constructed when we did that right turn lane.
Okay.
And that is the access, and we don't have any problem with them using that driveway.
So that could get them into that area right there.
Oh, certainly.
And then, of course, they could come on down and go around the, being on the Trammell Fresno Road and get in too.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, how many apartments do you think they can put in there?
600.
Well, they're looking at
Based on
600.
the density, in 30 acres, they could do a maximum of 600. Now, the actual design, when that comes through, because there's some, you know, there's limitations on the number of units per building, and then depending on other, you know, parkland dedication, landscaping, and all of those requirements, it may reduce that number down some more. But on the face of it, 30 acres, 600 units.
Or they can go up to 34, I think, couldn't it?
It seems like that's a very short distance from Highway 6 to that turn-in. I don't know how many car lengths that'd be. And I'm not an engineer.
I'm not either. That's why I'm so good at this.
But you are. Okay, it seems to me like that let's assume that this builds out and it gets apartments and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we have an entrance now where you designated it as an entrance. And at about 5 o'clock, you're gonna have all kinds of people coming home. And then you can go on for the weekend and everything. I'm just saying the exit so close to Highway 6 to me seems to me like we would have a tie-up between Highway 6 and that entrance of a lot of cars.
The problem really is when you have that double right turn lane.
Right.
And then you have an entrance or an exit. We put up all these little plastic dividers, we call them the delineators or candlesticks, to keep people from weaving too early, to keep that traffic moving. If we pick those up to allow traffic to weave, to get into the right lane, to enter into the apartments, let's say, onto that property, then it slows down that traffic that makes that right turn lane that wants to actually go to the left and continue north towards Houston on the Fort Bend Parkway. There's a very limited distance for all of those cars to decide which lane to get in. And when they leave that property, that's a continuous third lane up to Trammell Fresno, and you must turn right on Trammell Fresno. So anyone leaving from there has a very short distance before they have to, if they want to go to the Astros game or something, before they can get over to the left, and that's another movement.
What you're really saying here is there's really not enough room there. And when you start having a lot of traffic, then you got a big problem.
Well, we always knew that it was going to be commercial. We always knew,
That was my point. It looked to me like that it was LC3. LC3's going to be would be less traffic than apartments.
Well, what I'm really saying is, we don't really care what it is, but if any recommendation, if they come to the authority and ask us to restripe, redo the Fort Bend Parkway, or to change that driveway, we're less inclined to do that. We're very happy for them to use the driveway that's there, but to make changes, particularly for this piece of property and the users of this piece of property versus all the traffic that uses the Fort Bend Parkway, we're going to probably weigh that to the good of the Fort Bend Parkway.
And if I can make a comment to the commission, this is an iterative process, of course, on this kind of stuff, and the applicant hasn't seen this until just now because we got the information late, so I'm sorry to spring it on you on that. But that doesn't mean that the traffic can't be addressed. It just may mean this driveway may become an emergency vehicle access or entrance only. It may mean additional improvements on Hurricane Lane or something to that effect. So what we're trying to say is the TIA requires further revision and final approval of the Toll Road Authority if there's any modifications to anything on, well, actually it needs final approval since it affects traffic on there regardless of a modification. But the layout originally conceptually planned may not be something that y'all we could hold it to, and that's why we need to bring it up. And of course, traffic impact is appropriate to consider in zoning on that. So we still have some unresolved questions, not to say that they can't be resolved. So.
Okay, but in your professional opinion, we could make it work, but we're going to have to deal with it.
We could make it work probably. I don't know what impact it's going to have on Hurricane. For example, if you're shifting all this traffic, this becomes an emergency access only, and this traffic gets shifted to Hurricane, that may mean a signal on Hurricane. And that's something that, of course, the developer would be responsible for.
Are you saying that Highway 6 you would have a signal at Hurricane?
No, their main entrance would be on Hurricane Lane.
And so a signal could possibly
Going in there, see?
Between Highway 6 and Trammell Fresno.
Oh, I see that. But are you saying that they would be able to access that from Highway 6? Yeah, I understand.
So somewhere,
Yeah, because you can get onto Hurricane Lane from Highway 6 easy.
yeah.
There's no problem there.
Well, you
Because a
could
lot of
only
people are gonna be
you can
using
only
your
get on
toll road,
Hurricane
you
Lane
hope.
if you're making if you're heading westbound, northbound, whatever you want to call it on Highway 6. You can't make a left off of Highway 6 on the
That
Hurricane.
was my
Well, you
point.
can go
So
down.
you-
Well, they could make the
But they
U-turn,
could
come
make
back
the
to Trammell
U-turn
Fresno.
On back.
Exactly.
See,
I went out there
if you
today
look
and
at
looked at that
this,
thing again out there, and I thought
would
that
have
that
to
was
cross it. Now
pretty
they're coming
tight
down
all
the
the way
toll.
through there.
That's
Now,
really where
coming
they're
off
gonna
of
be coming
Hurricane Lane, yeah, you'd be
So
all right there
they would turn
probably.
here.
Because,
Now, how would they get here?
it's big enough
They
to
can't.
handle the traffic from the school and everything, you know?
Right.
It would be
Hurricane
all
is
right like that.
a four-lane road.
There's no
Yes.
turn there.
Yes, because you got 2 lanes on one side and 2 lanes on the other side.
I'll verify.
The other consideration that is not in the traffic impact analysis, because it's a roadway that's
understand.
under design right now,
Right,
and it could probably, or should be looked at in the traffic impact analysis, is the city's going to go out for construction of an extension of Hurricane Lane north of Trammell Fresno to Lake Olympia,
2 Lake
probably
Olympia.
within the next 9 months on that. And, well, actually, take it back, before September of next year on that. So that could change traffic patterns as well, and we should probably ask that gets modeled in here to see what that impact is.
But that would be a crossing of Highway 6 then?
No.
That'd be
That'd be
costing
going north.
Trammell Fresno.
No, I got
What this
that,
would
I got
do-
that, but he says he's going down, you're extending
Lake
Hurricane.
Olympia.
North.
But it's
Oh, Lake
going,
Olympia.
going that way.
So then traffic wanting to exit these, or enter these apartments could exit Lake Olympia, travel down Hurricane Lane, and enter the apartments that way and avoid the toll road altogether.
They could, well, hang on. They could also
You can increase your tolls at Lake Olympia.
exit Hurricane Lane, cross Trammell Fresno, go up to Lake Olympia, and enter the toll road going north at the Lake Olympia ramp. And that would be another way.
That would be another way.
Let me ask this, Scott, are we definitely going to have that extension to Hurricane Lane?
We should be receiving the dedication of the right-of-way in the next month or two, and the money is allocated both in our CIP budget for our 20% match and at HGAC for the federal 80% match. The earliest we can pull down that money is for September of 2013 letting
Right.
on that, so that would be about the rough time frame that it would go into construction.
But once we got the money, it should be no problem.
Right.
We've only been
Thank you.
talking about this for 10
Thank you.
years now.
So, we're not saying that the traffic issues are unresolvable by any means. I think we just need further revisions to the TIA.
Okay.
Can you clarify for me on, Mr. Jennifer, the roadway or driveway that's there now is about halfway at the corner of that red box there on Fort Bend Tollway, right? Is that the driveway you're saying that's all they're going to get right now unless they approach the board?
Well, we made an agreement a long time ago for additional right-of-way, and it included providing access. Of course, we're not sure what the land use was going to be. We knew it would be some kind of commercial, but that driveway was part of the deal.
Okay.
We're happy with that deal. We're happy for them to use the driveway, but it's how you use it, you know, and the timing. You know, the only problem with apartments or residential and on this road is this is a really highly used commuter road. So there's a really significant rush hour morning and afternoon. So it's a little different. So the number of folks you have coming in and out and the time of day is important. We're happy for them to use that driveway. That's we don't have any problem with them using it.
Going to have a car.
So you're looking at
Or
maybe 40 cars once they exit Highway 6 to make that right turn onto the Fort Bend Tollway, or Fort Bend Parkway. Maybe you get 40 cars there, bumper to bumper, before you get to that driveway. And we're talking 600 units possibly. Just the rough math is
Yeah,
what that.
if you ever go down there in the morning and sit at that corner and see the number of cars that make that right turn lane,
Busy,
it's busy.
yes,
It's very busy.
there is.
And even when we finally get the extension built and cross Highway 6, there's always going to be a big right turn movement there. And that's really the big concern, is making sure that right turn movement's always flowing.
According to the traffic impact analysis, the AM right turn movement is, in the AM peak, is 1,142 vehicles.
Wow.
The PM is a lot less, 148 on that.
What's the AM time? What is it?
That's probably about a 2-hour time frame from about 6 to 8 on that.
Can you put that other map up
And it's how
that
many,
shows that
how
whole
many,
thing?
Scott?
1,142, making that right turn off of 6
That's the
northbound on the
one.
toll
Yeah,
road.
Right there.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
yes, it is.
That's amazing, actually, for that little corner.
Yeah.
Okay, but for sure, I think, Scott, what we've heard is that
We need further analysis.
we just need a little bit more. It doesn't say
And
that
I'm
the
sure an
project can't
applicant would
move
be happy
forward.
to look at
Okay.
it and to
And it may
involve it again.
be, you know, from my perspective, I think it's more a case of looking at the final design that they have and the internal traffic flow within there. And is the main entrance on Hurricane? And is the primary way of coming and going from Hurricane, and this on this side is used in a more limited fashion? I see that as being not a problem. If this is supposed to be the main entrance, that's more of a problem.
Yeah, that's a serious problem.
If it's both an entrance and an exit, you know, I don't think it's unresolvable at all. I think it's just a question of the use,
How you do it.
how you do it.
Yeah.
How you do it is probably the right answer.
Right, makes sense.
Okay.
Are there any ramifications at this stage to, because we're talking about rezoning it, if there is no solution to this? If the traffic what-if situations, is there something that should be decided to voted on today, or should we wait for that?
I think we should probably talk to the applicant first, just get his feel
See what he's gonna
on
have to
it.
say.
And then, I mean, I see where you're going, because we would hate to rezone it.
That's
And then
right.
it's like,
Rezone it and then
No,
bingo.
there'd be no reason not to do that.
yeah, then we'd have to come back to this. So it's kinda-
Clinton?
You stirred it up.
Clinton, you have the floor.
Well, what you're hearing from Mike Stone is the same thing I'm hearing for the first time. And I can understand where they're coming from. And maybe what I need to do is give you also my spill and see how this situation of traffic could be resolved. A couple of years ago, we were contacted by Tote Bend Toll Road that they need right-of-way to widen the toll road. We had no problems doing that because, you know, many of our developments around Houston, we believe in good mobility, and we work with county, we work with city to get these things done. We entered into a contractual agreement with the toll road. Says, okay, we'll give you the right-of-way free of cost. My neighbor charged, I didn't charge a dime. But all I said, in exchange, just give me 2 good access into the property that is now presently zoned LC3, which is the entire, like, 56 acres. So we entered in a contract, and our engineers, their engineers, decide, well, let's find the most suitable place to put the access going in. And it was not just one access. There were 2, which I'm surprised was not even mentioned tonight, but maybe I can remind the toll road that there are 2. There's the one that you've been looking on, that is on the toll road.
Yes.
But on the south side, fronting along Highway 6, there is another paved access road going in. So it is not just one access going in to serve the entire 56. There are 2 presently paved. If you drive by there, you will see the paved
One here and one here.
access
Yeah.
going in.
This one, so that makes a big difference.
But you'd have to cross
Clinton,
over 6.
Are you saying coming off of Highway 6, going through the front part of the property to the rear?
Or exit and turn here.
Gotcha.
But here, you have to circle back and come. He said you can make a U-turn.
Okay, where's,
No.
is this the tollway?
This is Highway 6.
And the southern
Okay.
boundary parallel to Highway
Come off
6.
the toll road.
Between Hurricane
To here.
and the toll road, there is another
can't
paved
turn there.
access
No,
going
he said you have to
in
U-turn down.
to that tract of land.
But it's coming off of 6.
It's coming off of 6, correct. And also the one that you only heard tonight was the one off Fort Bend Toll Road. So,
Jennifer, can you mark that on there?
It's right
for
there,
that
yes.
second one?
Mm-hmm. Right there,
Yeah.
roughly.
back some
Okay.
more.
And there, okay.
Okay, now that's a roundabout turn. In other
No,
words, you
not
can't-
there, in the middle.
In the
That's
center.
in the
yeah.
middle.
In the middle of it.
No, down more, down more.
By the way.
There you go. Oh,
Yeah,
Well, this is Hurricane Boulevard.
it's between those 2 points.
Between
those
Hurricane,
two,
The black
in the middle.
highway is the second driveway that was built.
This
We don't show the corner of Highway 6 and the toll road on this drawing.
There you
This
go.
is like-
Right there.
about there, right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Okay,
So, no,
so,
those are the two
inches.
paved access that Fort Bend Toll Road paved and gave us the contractual right to use it. So that is set in stone. I can bring the contract to show you that. But having said all of that, I don't think the idea we have tonight is to try and challenge each other to see, who is right, who is wrong. I think we are both right, and I think we just need to do something that will, in the long term, if that area can consume maximum of 600 apartments, do we have the right of ways and to serve that amount of traffic? Just like the question was said, even the impact that the LC3 may have, we'd also have the same problem. So it's just not apartment, it's the entire area. When we approach the city with regards locating our apartment tract there, we took other things, Mr. Chairman, into consideration. There is also another access road on Trammell Fresno, nearer to where the stoplight is, and it's already paved.
So you're saying about right here, right?
So legally, we also have that right to enter it. Now we got
Where the
3
stoplight is, I'm
locations
assuming it's like right
to
here.
enter it, but yet tonight I only heard 1.
Yeah.
So I just want to put all the facts on the table so we can see the big picture.
You can have multiple access points.
What I've suggested to our planner, let's not even bother to have traffic coming in on the Trammell
No,
Fresno,
wherever the traffic light is on Oregon.
because it is
Is there a traffic
too
light
close
here?
to the
Then it must be
stoplight.
Right here, yeah.
So let us eliminate that and instead have 2 access coming down Hurricane. And on the planning maps that you will see that we got 2 access
That's right.
coming off the
Hurricane.
multifamily subdivision. So that's something we ourselves
Right here.
conceded and said, I don't think that was a
Oh,
good
he's
idea
showing
to
it
put it in.
one. He's showing
But
it 2.
what is also very important
third
is
one is here.
the people living there,
1, 2.
and you're concerned
saying it's
about
right here.
traffic going up Fort Bend Toll Road. If I was living there, Hurricane extension to Olympic Boulevard is more than on the drawing board. I heard it may be start construction with funding as early as end of next year. What I'm putting forward to you is something that's not even going to be built, probably maybe 2014 by the time we get planning and get everything going. And we were also planning that that would also give us beautiful relief to Fort Bend Toll Road off Olympic Parkway, where it's already have good access. And people coming home from downtown will also exit Olympic Parkway and come down Hurricane and get into the subdivision. I mean, we took all of these things into consideration because we also want to see that we develop something that there's good access in and out of that place. So we look at all of those conditions when we were planning it on the site. Now, if there is some adjustment that we need to sit down and talk about, having explained that there is so much different direction that we can access and that property, certainly we're willing to sit down and explore any other avenues that can help this project. And it was even when we were having discussion with the city, they were even saying to us, okay, so you build the apartments up here, you still have 26 acres of LC retail. What is the plan to connect both together? I said, I think it should. So we need to have stop street where people living there don't have to drive around to get back to the shopping that is adjacent to it. So we'll have even access coming from the apartments down to the remaining retails if it's built in the future, so that people can even walk, can even drive without having to get on the road. So we took all of those things in consideration when we were planning this. We just didn't just take this piece of land and said we want, to put 30 acres of apartment and that's it. We took every connection and we conceded even closing one that we have on Trammell Fresno because it was too close to the stop sign. And we were given the right to use it. And we have conceded it. So I'd just like, to let you all know that, we put in serious thought into this tract of land before submitting it for, your approval.
Mr. Wong, I have just one question for you.
Sure.
If in the event that the TIA does suggest that you use the service road off of the Fort Bend Toll Road as an emergency-only access or exit, would you take that into consideration as well? Or
Emergency going in or emergency going out?
well, I guess if it's for emergency use, it would probably be either or.
Going out, really.
Really going out. You don't think they would use it going in
As an emergency?
as an emergency?
You mean like the fire department?
Fire.
or
I
something?
think probably.
Yeah.
Well, you could have in and out, but I think
You could have
maybe-
in and out for
Yeah.
emergency.
Maybe coming out might be the more,
In other words, nobody could use it except
Except emergency.
emergency vehicles.
Would you consider that
That knocks off an entrance.
an entrance? Yeah, it would only provide him with entrance on Hurricane.
I think that would probably be a little bit overbearing for people living there that,
That live at the
in,
rear.
in most other apartments where they live, I mean, they don't have a emergency restriction getting into their unit. I mean, we have enough access to get into the property, but the visibility is going to be best on Fort Bend Toll Road. There's going to be an entrance going there. Well, let me try and answer your question the other way. Where that access is right now, it's not in front of the apartment. It's south of it.
Right.
And that is going to be the access getting into the future LC development retail.
Oh, okay.
So are you saying that even for my retail shoppers, I must have an
I got
emergency
you. I got you.
gate there that they can't even get in to shop?
Gotcha.
I mean, Kroger's having enough problem right now putting in traffic. To go and put an emergency gate to serve our retail, I don't think I could,
No, I got you
go
now.
for
I got
that.
you. No, I got you. That makes sense to me.
Scott, let me ask you a quick question.
Yes, sir.
here. Is there any problem with this entrance off of Highway 6 that would have to go through that 20-plus acres of ground there
Well,
in order to get to the back?
and let me back up a little bit to answer that appropriately. Staff has to make our recommendations and our review based upon what's submitted by the applicant.
Right.
The applicant did not submit utilizing that access on Highway 6.
Right.
On that. That access on Highway 6 is a right-in, right-out only access due to the grade separation of Highway 6 there. So could it be utilized and could that have a route up to it? Yes. But I don't know yet, without seeing the numbers from their on what impact that would have on relieving traffic. I do need to mention that in the TIA, the concern was that would require removal of the delineators, vertical delineators, was for the weaving distance on the, using that as an entrance on that. And the city's position is, it's up to the Toll Road Authority. The city's not going to govern what the Toll Road Authority does or does not allow on their roadway on that. So if the applicant gets approval from the Toll Road Authority, the city will grant approval for whatever the Toll Road Authority agrees to.
Right.
On that. But I do need to say that we have to make our recommendations based upon what's submitted to us, and they did not consider that driveway, they did not consider the Hurricane Lane extension. So some of this stuff, until it gets reviewed and looked at, it's hard for us to make a professional recommendation on that. But could they utilize it? Yes.
I have another question. Maybe it's just a concern, would it have been best if he had had the TIA prior to bringing this here?
Well,
at
this is the
point?
initial point that we require a TIA. This is pretty much the earliest point in the process.
Could have, but even prior to us,
Yeah,
prior to it
we
coming
did
here.
meet with the applicant at a staff meeting. We made some recommendations. I believe that, Mr. Wong, that your original plan was not to have any access on Hurricane, if I remember correctly. And we actually said, you probably want to put your main access on Hurricane rather than the toll road, just because of some of these issues out there. And we also did recommend that the TIA include the remainder of the property and have one big TIA that it looks at the total impact. Now at the time that the remainder of the property gets developed, however it gets developed, we'll just have to do another TIA and see what happens.
Let me ask this in the concept. The concept is to put apartments, correct?
Yes.
Now, whether it's 600 or 300 or whatever. And do you have some kind of a model in mind concerning that as to the size of the apartments, or has that ever been looked at to say, well, I think probably in this particular area, we probably could only support apartments that range in the price range of blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In other words, I don't care if it's 300 or 500, 300 or 100. Do you have a, what you call target size of an apartment? Because you must have built some before, or you never have, or?
Well, we have had other properties that we have sold to apartment developer. And normally, we have to approve their quality buildings, because this could also affect the remaining properties that we have. As far as, to answer your question, we're intending that this should be a higher end type apartment. It will be gated with all the necessary recreation facilities, and we're tailoring for the young professional and for the elderly. As Missouri City is diversifying in its economy, we think there should be a diversification of the bedroom concept. I mean, today, the rental market is the strongest right now, because the old cliche that you have to own a home, it's no longer that driven force. People are having difficulty getting financing, and it's now leading in that way. And in many of the overseas developed countries, most of them are in apartments, high-rise apartments. And we discussed this with staff, and we're saying, is your economy as such now where you do need to now have multifamily, good quality? And we have discussed it with a lot of your members, and they all think that is a good idea. But I at least show them plans, and I said, I want the higher end. And that's,
Higher end would mean what? I mean, you have
the
something in
best,
mind.
the best price that we can get in the market.
What are you looking at, Clinton, to charge for these apartments, roughly, average?
I would
Funds
like,
per year, per what?
I would like to get at least $1.30 a square foot.
And
What you may be thinking of, maybe 85 cents.
No, I'm not thinking about that.
I would like to get over $1.25, $1.30.
And what would
and
you
above.
think would be the average size of the apartment, just given an average? 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 1 bedroom, or just a multi of?
I would say the one bedroom would be down to about 1,000 square feet,
Okay.
and add 1,200, 1,400 in that increment.
So maybe for the average, we're looking at somewhere between, say, 1,400 and 2,000 bucks a month?
For the one bedroom.
Oh, no,
One bedroom
no.
would be, what, 11.30, at $1.30, wouldn't it?
What?
It'd be 11.30 at $1.30, wouldn't it?
If it's 1,000, it's 1,100, multiply that by $1.35.
Sure.
And that's what it would be per month, times 100. It is on the higher side.
Okay, then just, it's, if you compare that to some of the Houston apartments,
That's the same. It's about that's the market.
That's the market.
Yeah.
It really is.
If I could let the commission know, the traffic impact analysis assumed 600 units, so anything less than that, of course, would mitigate any traffic impact out there. So if the applicant does build less, then there's a lesser traffic impact.
Sure,
on that.
sure. Okay.
Can
I was
we-
just trying to get a picture of, not to have you build it right here. I was just trying to get an idea of what your thoughts were in building the apartments and what we're looking at, because we don't get too many apartment projects. And so I'm just kind of trying to see what that's looking at an apartment. I think we have one that just came up in Sienna.
Sienna is up.
Yeah, Sienna's up and going. We looked at that.
Yeah.
Let me look at it.
As you know, apartments haven't been too thrilling to
Popular.
the council.
Yeah.
Well, at times,
Come-
I would agree with you, but apartments are part of our strategy. It's part
Absolutely.
of our long-term strategic goal in terms of how we want to serve our future residents and our current residents in terms of housing. It meets those guidelines, and even if this particular one doesn't fall into the place, you suggested making adjustments to the land plan to accommodate multifamily.
What you're saying is we have to accommodate that because the economy is moving somewhat in that direction,
Anyway.
and if we don't get with it, we're going to be lagging behind.
Well, they
I think
can't
we
get
got with
home
it
loans.
when we did the.
They haven't
No,
trouble.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm saying the economy is pushing it,
Yeah.
not that we think it's it changes our mind on where we go.
Well, I don't know if we changed our mind. We agreed with the land plan when it was designed by staff.
That's correct.
So we basically, when we said, yes, this is our land plan, this is what we want to do in terms of how we build our community, we all agreed when we voted for it, and I know I did. So now we have something that fits into that criteria. All these details, this is what he does. You'll figure it out. You and Sam get together and whatever conversation you need to have, access, traffic, let all these smart people figure that out. In terms of our land plan, does this fit? Yes. Does it serve our community? Yes. How you get in and out, Clinton, I'm sure you'll figure that out.
You need to get in and you need to get out.
Right. Tollway wants to limit it. You'll have plenty of room
Exactly.
next door. Anyway, thanks.
Okay, do you have any other comments to make, Clinton?
No, I would just like to say that we have given this great thought. I mean, we have other properties that we could also have designated, but, you know, with its location, with the buffer it has on the toll road, Tramway Fresno, the school, Highway 6, with good shopping, the Walmart is just open, and all the services are there, and direct access in and out to downtown. I mean, it is well suited for what we're planning on. So we give it all those thoughts, and I'm just hoping that you will share the same view and allow us to, you know, move forward and try to meet your need for this changing demand that is happening in the city.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that what's before us right now is the approval of this going from LC3 to
MF2.
MF2.
MF2, period.
Yes, no
So
deviation.
if we move to that, then we have designated that property to that new designation, period.
You're making that
Whether
recommendation.
excuse me, but whether you take it or whether somebody else takes it. Is that correct? I want to make sure we all understand that. That's okay. Just want to make sure.
Right.
We're sort
But
of
he-
looking,
But he can put anything else in there that he so desires based on the zoning there.
Based on, if the recommendation is to rezone the property and it's adopted, then anything conforming to the MF2 designation could go there.
he can't go, well, I guess you could go back. if you
Can't come
wanted
back.
to. I mean, by coming before us, go back to LC.
But the density, the requirements for parks, all of that, those guidelines haven't changed
Right.
by making this
No,
so tonight. So I mean, details are the next stage. Tonight, is this how we want to provide, you know, the use of our land in Missouri City? Well,
but right now, when we do that, and we create that little section right there, because this whole section is designated as LC3.
Right.
Now we've created this. Now we create a buffer, right, automatically. A buffer now, which is fine, because that spreads and gives you the ability to have two different
That's right.
deals, two different designations. I would rather see that go somewhere else, but maybe later.
thank you, Clinton.
I think it's very necessary from a real estate perspective and a housing perspective. And I agree totally with you, John. It's one of the things we had asked for and have opportunity to get it.
What I think happened too is when we got a little bit, some information that wasn't part of the packet, that put us on a sidebar issue. And John brought us back, but, you know, to Clinton, he spoke very well, and it's his investment. They have to do the research. And Jennifer's opening presentation really supported where he's going with this, and it's something Missouri City does need for the
That was
future.
an unintended consequence.
Yeah.
I just want to put that out.
It was a
there.
nice segue.
Well, let me add this.
There's no doubt in my mind that's been well thought out. The research has been done in place. We just didn't have all the information. You clarified a lot of it. So I think it's a good move. Yes.
Let me make this comment. I've known Clinton now for a lot of years, and he and I have been through a lot together. And I think he's been very, very, very good with a project like this. He's been straightforward with us tonight, and I don't question anything at all that you've said tonight, Clinton. I certainly have faith in that.
Appreciate it, sir.
And we'll get this thing worked out. We'll get it worked out. Right, Scott?
That's correct.
We'll get it worked out. Okay, as this is a public hearing, is there anybody in the audience that would like to step to the podium and address this project? If you would like to do that, please be our guest.
I make a motion we close the public hearing.
Second to that?
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion about that? Sonia, you were
I
going to
have a
say something?
question.
Sure.
Let me ask Jennifer. Why didn't he consider doing the development on the other half of the land?
Oh, that should have been.
Well, I was going to ask him, but he got away too quick.
My guess is Highway 6 curb appeal is more effective on the
Right.
retail end.
Yeah,
than it is the
That's
apartment.
than it is, okay.
That's right.
I was just curious.
I would think so. Makes sense.
But I did want to mention in the commissioner's packets, there is a letter from Fort Bend ISD. They've been kind of
Supporting.
mentioned and they are a neighbor, but the applicant has been in conversations with them and they're aware of the potential of the project and have worked it into their overall plans as well.
Clinton, is that pretty much where it is as to why you didn't go all the way up to Highway 6?
I was curious, Mr. Wong, as to why you didn't do the project closer to 6.
Why the project is in front of Highway 6, why it's pushed to Tremont.
Why you took half of it, in other words?
Because I think 600 units is a lot of units to consume, and it's going to depend on demand. I cannot see 56 acres be all apartments.
Right.
And I think that the southern portion is most suited for commercial retail, not warehousing, as Mr. McCree is saying, but for retail. Well, right now, I think there's enough retail, as you can see on the south side. So whenever the demand for retail comes, I certainly would like to do retail on the south side and connect both tracks where people can get access from apartments to shopping.
Okay.
That is the reason why. The market just cannot consume 56 acres
Right.
of apartments.
Well, that makes sense. You
Okay.
okay with that? Okay, we've got a motion and a second, close public hearing. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, the public hearing is hereby closed. Do I hear a further motion about the project?
Right, I make a motion that Mr. Wong and Scott and Jennifer and the planning department get together and work out the details and move forward.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion of that? Is everybody tuned in there?
So are you amending the motion to pass this on to city council with a positive recommendation and have the details worked out by the staff?
Right.
You're not asking for it to be returned here?
No.
Okay.
He's taking it.
Just want to make sure what I'm voting for. I like it.
You know, just
You okay with that,
get
John?
together and
Me too.
Scott and Jennifer and Mr. Wong work it out.
And that's the way I understood to second it.
Okay, any further discussion on that at all? Everybody okay with it? Okay. Those opposed, those for, whatever?
How about 4?
All in favor?
All in favor, those opposed, okay. Motion carries. Good project, Clinton.
Okay, so we will be bringing the land use amendment back to you next month.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds good. All right, agenda item number 9, public hearing and consideration for a plan development. 9A, public hearing to receive comments for or against a request to rezone an approximate 26-acre tract of land currently zoned LC3 Retail District to PD Plan Development District to allow for the use of the property as a mixed-use development incorporating LC3 Retail District uses and office/warehouse/industrial uses. The subject site is located southwest of the intersection of Highway 90A and Tang City Drive and northeast of the intersection of Bull Lane and Adams Street.
Yes, Commission, the applicants are here tonight to request the creation of a plan development district to allow for the uses described by the Commissioner. As you can see in the exhibit that's on screen now, the site is located directly off Highway 90. With a small portion at the southeast corner that is on Adams Road, and actually a portion of the site contains some right-of-way that's been dedicated to the city as well. Here are a few photographs of the site as it exists today from various perspectives. There's not much on the land. There is currently one building that's in existence with a tire shop located within it. And here is the concept that the applicants are requesting. At this time, they would be looking as far as uses to utilize the front half of the tract, or actually a little less than the probably first third of the tract. So these 3 buildings plus a building that's already been permitted and is under construction, which is Second Mile Ministries. Those would retain their retail commercial use. The buildings that you see to the rear here would be potentially used for what we call office warehouse and industrial uses, excluding sexually oriented businesses. In addition to the requested use change from LC3, the applicants are also requesting various deviations to Section 7A, our architectural design standards, and Section 11, our landscape standards. Here's a rendering of potentially what a building that would be utilized for the office warehouse use. It would have this is the look that the applicants are requesting. And of the deviations pertaining to architectural standards, the first one is to allow for the use of pre-finished metal panels for exterior walls on those structures to be utilized for the office, warehouse, and industrial uses. Section 782C2 requires that 100% of all exterior walls, including windows and doors, be a masonry product. Staff is recommending that the office, warehouse, industrial buildings be required to have the standards of Architectural Design Zone I-1, which would allow for masonry products, but things like tilt wall, CMU, other products like that as the primary building material in the exterior, but would not allow for metal. The second request that the applicants have made for deviation is to remove the width requirements for awnings on the structures to the rear to be used for office, warehouse, and industrial uses. Staff recommends allowing the applicant's request on that, as that would basically be utilizing an area for people to get out from under the rain as they're going into the buildings. So we don't have any issue with that requested deviation. The third is to remove the height requirements of the awnings. Again, staff didn't really have, we recommend allowing the applicant's deviation to the height request. And essentially it would look similar to what you're seeing here. There wouldn't be a major difference in the way that the awnings are drawn on this depiction. The fourth requested deviation is for the use of corrugated materials as walls or roofs on those structures to be utilized for office, warehouse, and industrial uses. The zoning ordinance currently prohibits that on visible portions, and we recommend to disapprove the applicant's request of those being allowed to be used in visible portions of the building. The fifth deviation is the request to use chain link fencing integrated with vines or plant materials and/or vinyl slats 8 feet in height in place of the required masonry for screening and buffering between this development and the surrounding residential zone properties. And staff is recommending that they be required to meet the type A screening requirements, which would be an 8-foot masonry wall with the required landscaping associated with that between their development and the residentially zoned properties. The sixth deviation requested is to place no canopy trees along the perimeter of parking areas associated with those structures to be utilized for the office, warehouse, and industrial uses. Staff is recommending to disapprove the applicant's request and require perimeter parking trees on the entire site. And just as clarification, the applicants are only requesting that deviation in regards to the rear buildings. Along the front and along Highway 90, what will be most visible, they are requesting no changes. They're going to go with the current regulations that we have, which would be type B screening. The seventh request is to omit landscape, island, and diamond requirements for all parking areas associated with those to be used for the office, warehouse, and industrial uses. Our ordinance currently for industrial uses does not require islands or diamonds if those parking areas are to the rear of the buildings. In this case, and we don't have a final design yet of exactly how everything will be laid out as far as footprints and all that. So we are recommending that they be required to have the islands and diamonds as it would be currently required in the ordinance. The eighth deviation is to remove the interior landscaping requirements. The ordinance currently requires that either 20% of the entire site not covered by building and not part of the right-of-way or dedicated public streets, or 6% of the gross area of the entire site, whichever is greater, has to be left as landscape, green space, open space. We as staff recommend that they be required to go with the ordinance's regulations regarding open space, green space utilization inside the site. The ninth deviation is to remove the requirements for interior landscaping to be integrated into the overall design of the surface parking area in such a manner as it assists to define parking slots, pedestrian paths, driveways, internal collector lanes, and limiting points of ingress and egress, and providing traffic calming and separating parking pavement from street alignments, and providing visual interruption to rows of parking. And staff recommends that they be required to meet those regulations within our current ordinance to design the site in such a way that it incorporates landscaping, which ties into the previous request that they had. The 10th is to remove the requirements of landscape screening standards for driveways, outside storage areas, shopping cart corrals, trash disposal areas, ground-mounted mechanical equipment, loading docks, delivery entrances that are within public view associated with those structures to be utilized for the office, industrial, warehouse uses. Again, they're only requesting this to the rear of the site. Along the front, they would still be meeting our normal requirements for that, but staff is recommending to disapprove their request and to be required to meet the requirements of the ordinance. That was a mouthful.
Yeah.
The request is in line with our land use plan, and it's also in line with the comprehensive plans and goals for development along Highway 90 and other things. So staff is recommending that the uses be approved. As a note in the commissioner's packets, I'm sure you noticed that there is a slight issue still that's outstanding regarding the detention area that will be required potentially for the site. Staff is working with the applicants to get that resolved. So what you see before you as the concept plan that's shown really is just denoting those areas that they're trying to show for what would be the retail commercial uses, and those that would be the areas for the office, warehouse, and industrial uses. The applicants are here. If the commissioners have any questions.
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
You say, sir. You step to the podium, sir, and give your name.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kelly Harris, and I am not the owner of the property, but I have been deemed representative for the owner of the property. I'm actually the general contractor that's currently developing what's going on at that site right
Kelly
now.
Harrison?
Harris?
Harris, okay.
Yes, sir. So I will be here. The owners, just if I give you a quick recap of what we're trying to do on this development. It's a 26.2 acre development right on Highway 90. We're really not asking for any deviations for the commercial property and the retail property that fronts Highway 90. We're going to follow all the city's requirements for commercial development. The owner of the property, because of what the market is, what he's finding in the market as far as build-to-suit buildings are concerned, he's finding some more interest in tenants that do not necessarily meet the LC3, which is the way it's currently zoned. He's finding tenants that are interested in different areas of commercial business that don't currently meet the LC3. That's the whole reason why we're coming before you requesting the industrial classification based on our meetings with the staff and describing some of the proposed tenants that the owner currently has been talking to and negotiating with. Staff has felt that our best bet and our best option would be to move forward with keeping the LC3 for the front portion of the building and going back to the industrial portion and mini storage portion on the back of the property that's not fronted or visible by Highway 90.
Let me ask you this question.
Yes, sir.
I went out there yesterday and today and got out of my car because I couldn't get back in there hardly. And my conclusion was that if we had a M48 tank, you couldn't get through that area. That thing is so, it's a total thicket back in there, and then that ground is all going like this. I think we got a detention problem back there, and we've got to get that resolved. And there's got to be some type of facts put before us, reports or whatever, to show whether or not that water can be handled. And right now, the way it is, I have a real question about all of that.
Okay, if I could address that, I'd be more than happy to. First of all, that 26.2 acres has been left primarily undeveloped for decades. It's been overgrown, and you're 100% correct. It is fully overgrown. There's trees on there that have been there for a long, long time. So you're correct. It is a heavily overgrown site right now. The second part of the issue that you bring up with detention is concerned. Currently, right now, we've got about a 1.8 acre site that Second Mile is being developed on. In addition to that 1.8 acres, we currently have right at 1.9 acre detention pond that is servicing that area that is 13 feet deep. Now, based on our preliminary plat design, the detention requirements for that entire 26.2 acres was, I think, about 40% of that property based on 2-foot depth detention. We obviously, based on staff recommendations and meetings with Jing and her people, decided to make that detention pond smaller and deeper, which we still have the hydraulics that Jing is required to meet that. We feel as though the current detention pond that's there right now will obviously suffice for the Second Mile development, but we feel as though we have some overage hydraulics capabilities to handle some more future developments that currently aren't there. We are by no means, and don't want to represent to you or anybody else, that the detention pond that's there right now will suffice for a complete redevelopment of that 26.2 acres. And we specifically did not address the increased size of the detention pond until we know exactly what we're going to be building there. So we are we're fully aware of the fact that we will have additional detention requirements. But what those requirements are right now, I don't even know, because the owner, once again, is still in negotiations with multiple tenants that want to do build-to-suit properties. In addition to the detention pond requirements, we do have access to TxDOT detention as long as any of the buildings that we train into TxDOT are within 150 feet of Highway 90. So all the buildings that are built on that 26.2 acres don't necessarily have to go into on-site detention. They can go right into the detention that runs along Highway 90 when they built that road. So because of the different variances of detention going into TxDOT, what we can actually develop with what is there right now, we specifically really did not address detention, knowing full well that any project that we bring before the city for permitting and design is going to have to go through detention requirements, as it does with, along with all the other paths that it has to go through.
Out of curiosity, when you did the calculations with engineering, did you use our standard of green space requirements in the calculation? And you're asking for a deviation not to have that green space on the back side of the property? You don't want to have any island beds, and I'm not sure what percentage you were saying that was required, but they were asking for a deviation on the back side of the property in the parking lot that was going to be used for industrial, that you didn't want to have the green space that we would normally require back there.
There's a requirement that either 6% of the entire site utilizes open green space, which detention could be considered as part of that. We wouldn't exclude detention from that, or 20% minus the whole site minus building footprints. At 20% of that would be it's the greater of is what would be the requirement.
I'm just looking at the total amount of impervious, the stuff that you're adding, that's definitely going to need to have that water be controlled, because you're asking for deviations to where you have a limited amount of green space in that backside. And those details, I don't even know why I even think about it. Here's my, I want to ask you this.
Sure.
The Highway 90, I understand why you want to meet those requirements because of curb appeal, and I'm glad you want to have that sense of arrival in Missouri City, and I applaud that. But your neighbors on the backside, you're asking for deviations, not only to make it an industrial property, which used to be woods. You don't want to buffer it. You don't want to add trees. You don't want to screen it. You basically are telling all the folks that are going to be your neighbors, I don't care what you look at, but I want Highway 90 to be real pretty. Because that's how it comes across when I read what you're asking, and I'm just kind of telling, it's not my opinion.
I understand.
But your neighbors all along the side, you're asking not to help them at all.
Actually, if I could address that.
Go ahead.
I
Travis.
was going to say, on a point of clarity, they actually are stating that they would have a tree buffer. I think it was approximately 20 feet. It was mainly the actual wall that was the issue, whether the ordinance would require there to be a masonry wall in addition to that tree buffer, and it would actually require less trees. So they're asking to have more trees there that are already naturally there with a chain link fence with either vinyl slats or plant material growing through it or a combination thereof.
Let's say you live there.
Travis, if I could ask a question. If there's no masonry wall, is there not an 80-foot requirement for a buffer yard?
Yeah, that's what I.
Yes, yeah, no, so they would still have to, right, they would still be.
And they're asking for 20 feet.
Yes, I'm just
And
saying
not
that they are
masonry.
showing they are leaving trees in there, so it wouldn't be bare along the perimeter where there's the residential. It's mainly where we come into play when you get over by Chengham Drive and some of the
Right.
city development over there. That's where there's an issue on both sides. It's a complicated issue.
Yeah.
Because there is a requirement along the residential property lines that you have type A screening, which is 8-foot masonry wall with canopy trees spaced at every 30 feet. And again, along the public road there, the drives that are, the roads that are associated with the old Tang City development, they would have to have perimeter parking trees along that as well. Along that roadway, they're saying, hey, it's not near Highway 98, we would request not to have canopy trees there. They're still going to have trees along where the residences are. They are just mainly requesting not to have to build the masonry fence.
And a
the masonry
reduction,
wall.
and a reduction in the barrier.
In the
masonry
distance.
wall, yeah. Well, with a masonry wall, there would be a distance requirement of 20 feet for type B.
Okay.
Scott, let me ask you this question.
But without the wall, he's right, there would have to be a detention pond between them, and I believe it's 40 feet, something like that, where there's a distance between the building itself and the residential property line.
What is your professional opinion regarding this detention matter?
I have serious reservations on whether TxDOT will take any significant flows from this site. During the Highway 90A widening, they basically used up every bit of drainage capacity that was available in Highway 90A out there. So I would have serious reservations about counting on any of that. I also have serious reservations about including a concept plan that, even though it's a concept plan, it's a point of confusion or contention that does not show detention adequate for the site on that. We based the detention upon the applicant's engineer's calculations, and his calculations seem to be appropriate on that. Staff recommendation would be to have a concept plan included in this site plan, in this ordinance, that reflects the detention requirements on that.
Basically, what you're saying is they're going to have to meet the retention requirements of the property no matter what.
Right.
Okay, so if they have to dig a 70-foot hole to do it, that's what they're going to have to do, and it's not a matter of will they do it, it's a matter that they will do it. Is that a fact?
But yes, that is a fact that that they would have to meet the retention requirements. However, if there's an approved concept plan as part of the ordinance that shows something different, it's a point of contention out there, and perhaps legal could weigh in on whether that's, significant point of contention or not on that. But we've always approached giving the applicants as much information as possible, as early as possible in the process, and we like to resolve these issues as early as possible in the process out there. If the detention's based upon the zoning classification, the detention doesn't requirements under Fort Bend County ordinances detention criteria manual doesn't say if it's retail, if it's a shoe store, it's this, if it's a Burger King, it's that. It's based upon the zoning classification of industrial. So if he gets a zoning classification of industrial, you can calculate detention requirements today out there. So whether he builds 5 or 6, it could still be calculated today based upon the 85% imperviousness required for industrial classification under Fort Bend County Drainage Criteria Manual.
Right, okay.
So there should be no reason to say that it might change down the road. If so, then the staff would work with them down the road.
Well, there's one sure thing we know, there's a lot of problems out there with that property.
There at that north side of the city, the old Missouri City area, there's some significant drainage issues in that area.
And that's not trying to pick on the area there, but it's just a matter of fact. And then
That's
you have a
correct.
lot of work to get to that point where that piece of property can really be effective. And,
Well, I think really and truly, I agree with John, that I think what happens is we're gonna make it real pretty on 90.
that's right.
We aren't gonna make it as pretty on the other end with the residents. In other words, to give them the buffer and the good feeling that they've got a distance and a buffer. And I'm not worried so much myself about detention, because I think that'll all be worked out. But I certainly get a little bit concerned when I see, as you pointed out, John, that they definitely are not, it gives the impression
Right.
of just what you said. I'm
Well,
not-
Mr. Harris, you got to, just FYI, we were, probably a lot of the same people in this room were in this room, what, 6 months?
If that.
So we're familiar with the area because we had another developer that wanted to develop along the property line of a lot of the homeowners that have been there for years and years. His presentation was a lot different because he wanted to be a neighbor and a good neighbor, and the dialogue was from the very beginning, you know, buffers and trees, and, you know, we all have a house and we all want to have a nice neighbor.
Sure.
So to remove a forest and put an industrial building, and you don't want to put any trees, you want a chain link fence that you can put a little ivy. I'm paraphrasing, but there's going to be some blowback.
Okay.
Not only from us, but from the folks that are going to speak right after you.
Sure, I understand. And our intention is not to be unneighborly at all. We are not trying to be bad neighbors in any shape, form, or fashion. The site right now is zoned for LC3, which is a commercial application.
Right.
So that site is going to be developed. Now,
Oh, yeah. And we want it to be developed.
and
We
the
want Missouri
neighbors
City
are
developed.
going to have commercial properties adjacent to them as it is right now. The only thing that the owner was asking for was, since some of the buildings, basically what the owner was asking for was a little bit of architectural relief from buildings that were put on the back of the site that were not visible from Highway 90.
Right.
As you can see in our site plan. In fact, the owner has gone to some lengths to design the buildings that do border the residential areas to have all front-loaded buildings. There's no traffic going behind the buildings. There won't be any 18-wheelers or anything else. That I can see a scenario where if we develop that in a commercial setting with a retail development back there, we have back alleyways for retail deliveries, so forth and so on. We have gone to great lengths to keep the impediment of 18-wheelers or anything else that might be back there making deliveries, keep it to the front of the building. So his intention is not to be unneighborly whatsoever. It's a retail site. It's currently zoned for retail. So again, that site is going to be developed. And the fact that and we will again follow all the design requirements that are set forth by the staff. But he's just asking, again, for a little bit of architectural relief for buildings that don't front 90. And to get the industrial classification that goes along with LC3, so he can again, try to go out and negotiate with some of the people that have brought interest to him to bringing design build buildings to that area.
Have we got any other questions? Yeah. Have we got any other questions of this gentleman? Anyone?
One thing I'd like to mention about the detention is, Mr. Harris, you mentioned that the pond was 13 feet deep, but a lot of it is permanent water surface as well. Just keep that in mind. So it's not the entire 13 feet, it's utilized for detention. That's not true, so.
Well, and I will say that Jones Carter is doing all the civil engineering on it. Jones Carter has investigated the point to the fact that we can use TxDOT because of the retail center that the owner is currently under design right now. He is bordering or using TxDOT, the allowances that TxDOT gives us to drain part of that property into the TxDOT system on Highway 90 based on what Jones Carter has designed up to this point.
Right.
So he's taken some of that water. We're not asking for any detention variances. We understand that we will have additional detention requirements based on whatever building's there.
Right.
Just for the commission's information, the normal TxDOT on 98, what they've been doing lately, it effectively is only about 80 feet of developed property that can flow that way. So looking at the size of this, it's a very minimal amount that can flow towards 98.
Yeah.
I think the reality is also that the detention required for future, to develop out the whole site, it's going to require a lot more surface area than what you're showing on the concept plan. It's going to be closer to this area shown in the red line,
Staff's recommendation on the detention issue is that if this is approved, that it is approved with, subject to a site plan being included that properly shows the detention requirement on the site. That's staff's recommendation.
Okay.
I had a question, Mr. Harris.
Yes, sir.
Regarding this drawing here. All the green.
The site plan?
Yeah, the site plan. I see all the green. When they have your trees there, you're saying you're going to leave the trees there. Can the residents see the fence through the trees? Or is it going to be the fence then the trees, or the trees then the fence?
Are you talking about on the west side of the property? Between the residential property and the...
This one here? This area specifically? You see that? That would be the south east side, if you will.
Right, the buffer, from my understanding of what the owner wants to do, he wants to put the fence on his property line and then have the trees between the fence and the buildings.
So you can see the fence.
Yeah, so you can see the fence, yeah. Okay.
If that needs to be reversed, I don't see where he would.
Well, the issue would be, like, if I live there, I don't want to go out there and see a chain link fence and then the trees. I'd rather see the trees and then back 20 or 80 feet behind the trees is where the fence is. That, to me, that's reasonable. The illusion of the forest would still be there. When you have the fence there, then it's an industrial park. Something to consider.
Something to consider, absolutely. And once again, it's currently zoned for LC3, so he could develop it as full retail property.
We wouldn't have a problem with that. That would almost probably be better.
And again, even with the retail properties, is that they would have to still build a masonry fence.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm thinking. That's
There's
great.
a change of
We wouldn't
zoning
have to deal
from
with this.
residential to commercial, industrial, it doesn't matter. It's a different intensity of use. That would still be a regulation there.
Absolutely. We'd get a big masonry wall then.
And the traffic, just another side note, the traffic, we did the TIA on it, and the increase in the zoning from LC3 and industrial combination, the TIA was actually lower than what the full only LC3 would be for that area as well. And if you'll notice on the site plan, the owner is not impeding Adams or Bull Lane using for any, any sort of driveway entrances or exits or anything along those lines.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. I'd be more than happy to answer any more questions if you have them.
All right, thank you. Legal, E. Joyce?
That would be awesome with the mason.
What are your comments about all of this?
Good evening, everyone. I know that there was a question about, I believe, adding the concept plan to the ordinance, or to the actual PD ordinance. If council adopts a concept plan, and there's no general language limiting that concept plan, it would become part of the ordinance. So the applicant or a successor in interest would have to abide by what is in that plan if it's adopted by council, specifically adopted by council. In the past, we have included some language that limits the application of some plans by saying that it's generally applicable or that development can be made generally in accordance with what's in the site plan. But again, if council does choose to adopt it, it would be something that the applicant or his or her successor would have to abide by.
Okay.
Okay.
Do y'all have any other questions?
Any other questions?
We'll have some in a minute.
That's right. All right, as this is a public hearing, I have a form here that says that Mr. Ernest Terrell, is he in the audience? Would you step to the podium, please, sir, and address your comments? And I also understand, are you representing the group or what?
I guess I am. I'm the only one that, I guess.
State your name and so forth, and you have the floor.
Ernest Terrell, I live at 703 Bull Lane, so it's kind of right in the middle of this property. Appreciate the comments and the help with all of this. We understand that all that property is an LC3, okay? Well, we understand the retail thing there. There's a couple of concerns, main concerns. One of them was a great point on the drainage, because the way the drainage, whether what it shows on paper, but what it does could possibly be two different things. Our main drainage is from north to south. There's a storm drain that's directly across the street from my house. So once the ditches come, it can drop down below and it comes toward the Cangelosi ditch. That's the main drainage. But when that backs up, what happens is the water comes back onto the east side of Bull Lane between the houses. And I have a storage shed in the back that has flooded a couple of times because of the rains, because of things that have blocked the water. There's so much water trying to come through our housing headed toward the east side, which would be back toward this property. And some of the concerns that I have is these buildings that they're going to put along with this wall. Now you've created a barrier for me, for all of us, on that drainage. Bull Lane has flooded and it still floods today. They tried to come in and clean the ditches. We're not a curb street to get that drainage down toward the Cangelosi ditch, but it hasn't completely worked. We even know that the detention pond on that end has blocked up because the ditch got so full, it backed up the detention area. So it comes backwards towards us. So it reverses everything, and then the drainage all heads to the east. So it might be one of the things that you look at, Travis. We haven't really talked about that, but that's what happens. That's what we see. One of the other main concerns that I see is that entranceway on Highway 90. You want to go to an industrial zoned park. The traffic flow coming out of Stafford, if you guys would like to come, and I'll bring the coffee, we'll sit and we'll watch the traffic flow coming over that overpass coming out of Stafford, is the main lanes, the access road of everybody coming up 2234 to 90A is taking the frontage road. That all meets right at that entranceway.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm telling you, I've seen a couple of wrecks that we've had up there, and y'all can check with the police department because they do run radar pretty regularly right there at Tank City Mall. They'll run it because the speeds through there are tremendous. The average speed on Bull Lane, the last time we checked, was almost 47 miles an hour going down Bull Lane. Okay? So you can imagine the people coming off of the frontage road trying to bleed into the lanes of the main lanes, and then traffic coming off trying to get over and going to make that turn into that property.
And that's a narrow lane too. Are you closer to Adams or to 90?
I'm closer to Adams.
You closer to Adams?
Yes, sir. In fact, Travis can show you exactly where I'm at.
It's on the back side of the,
Adams is on the backside there.
okay, he's here.
One end of Adams.
Robinson's property is on the corner of Bull Lane and Adams.
Okay.
Then the next property is an acre and a half that's vacant, and then we're the very next house.
There you are, right there. Just, that's it,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. I think one end of Adams down there, just a short piece away, is a little cul-de-sac. isn't
Yes,
it?
sir. That's correct. So, you know, at that point in time, and what, the thing I'm bringing up about the industrial area is because a car coming out, it's difficult at times to get off of Bull Lane onto that because the traffic flow's coming up 2234 and they're coming quick, especially if it's at dark in the mornings. But you take an 18-wheeler trying to get out of that one entranceway, with traffic coming from the frontage road and coming straight main lanes, and him trying to get out into that flow of traffic, it's going to be bad. If there's one wreck that's going to happen, it's going to be bad. And it's something I think we ought to consider about, you know, increasing the amount of slower traffic, I guess is the way to put it.
But I think Mr. Harris had mentioned that by making it industrial, it actually reduces the amount of traffic.
I understand that.
In what it's currently zoned. And that's an analysis that I is pretty sure is neutral.
Yeah, I heard him say that, but does that decrease the amount of 18-wheelers?
Not sure.
I'm not sure either.
Whether it's retail or industrial.
I'm just saying,
the
a
analysis-
slow-moving vehicle trying to exit onto, you know, a car, you got a little opening, you can get out pretty quick.
Right.
But delivery trucks, 18-wheelers is what I'm talking about, trying to exit right there with that traffic coming. It all comes together right there at the same point.
So the drainage and the traffic.
Hold on.
I might have an answer that might make him feel a little bit more comfortable.
Right.
The owner has designated that entrance on Highway 90 has been there forever and is staying there. But the owner does not want, in that paving that's going into that center or that property coming off Highway 90 is not designed for 18-wheeler traffic. All the 18-wheeler traffic and heavy delivery traffic is going to go down Tank City Boulevard and come in the east side of the property. So it will only commercial cars or pedestrian cars will be using the entrance that's right there on Highway 90.
That solves that problem.
Well, concerning the entrances off of 90, staff hasn't seen a text dot approval for the second proposed exit. That's in addition to the existing ingress egress point. So that's another concern of staff's, that this particular site plan or concept plan isn't accurately reflecting the technical requirements for the site. So.
Can you say that again? I didn't catch all that.
Mr. Harris, that's an interesting concept. Unless those driveways are designed so that those big trucks cannot go through there, I don't think there's any way you guys could actually regulate an 18-wheeler from coming in, pulling in off of 90, unless it's physically not possible.
Yeah, we put a headache bar to limit traffic, because the owner does not want 18-wheeler traffic on that road coming up to the that would be to the west of that new retail center.
So you would make it a restriction then?
Yes, sir.
I
we would physically restrict.
I have some serious concerns as a city engineer with directing all the truck traffic on Tank City. That's only 6-inch pavement, and it's not designed to handle heavy truck traffic. If that is the case, then we would ask the applicant to upgrade Tank City Boulevard to thicker pavement to handle that. But it was never contemplated to be a truck access route on Tank City Boulevard.
How thick is that concrete now?
6 inches, just like a residential street on Tank City.
And you would have to go...
You'd have to go 8 at a minimum on that. Highway 90's 13 inches thick on that. That's, I mean, that would be the preferred truck route.
Whoops.
Well, there's a
Tank City would
ton
be-
of traffic that goes through there.
You said Tank City would be preferred if you
No.
had the right? Or not preferred?
Tank City would not structurally be capable of handling
If it was,
heavy
would
truck
would
traffic.
it be preferred?
If it was, it would be acceptable to the city, yes. But the city does not have funds to upgrade Tank City Boulevard to meet those requirements. That would have to be borne by the applicant.
And sir, besides you mentioned the traffic and the drainage, did you have any other issues?
Most of them have been addressed by the paperwork that I read tonight.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, would you prefer, you just mentioned the trees and the fence, or the fence and the trees? Or do you want just a big old
Mason wall.
masonry?
Well, we definitely want a masonry wall.
Okay.
Now, whether it's the trees and the
Yeah.
wall, that's
Okay.
aesthetics thing.
So the chain link fence is not in your scope?
No,
Okay.
not at all. I mean, they can say all they want. I mean, we have a lot of noise there now. We can hear the tollway, we can hear 90, we can hear the trains. There's 40 trains a day that go through there. And when the winter comes around and that wind's coming out of the north, it sounds like that train's in my backyard. That's how loud it is. I can be on the phone and have people ask me inside my house, "Where are you at?" I told them, "The train station. Can't you hear the train?"
Okay, so that's what your folks would,
We have another homeowner here that y'all mind him.
Okay, Mr. Terrell, thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to step to the podium?
Okay.
Please be our guest. And state your name.
My name is Benton Finch. I live, I can show you on the map. And Scott, honestly, if you'd asked us how we feel about it today, we don't like it today. I mean, we know it's coming, so you don't have to keep reminding us of all that. Right here. Okay. And my concern, and I know you're addressing it, but he says he has a 13-foot lake pond there now.
Right.
Every time we get a hard rain, I can show you a watermark about 14 inches high on my fence that joins him. And that water appears to be coming from that direction. It's not coming from this direction. I mean, every time. So, and I know he keeps saying that he will address that, and that's a good thing. But I've heard here tonight a lot of encouraging things, and I guess I hadn't been here long enough. I don't remember Mr. O'Malley, but I like the way he talks. You have a land plan, and you've all agreed on it. I like that. You want beautification. I like that. So with all that in mind, I'm going to tell you, you've got things in place. And for the most part, I think you tried to honor that tonight, but you still want to make a few. Guys, I'm just going to implore you, don't water your stuff down. I mean, you want to beautify this place. You want it to look like a place we could all be proud of. Hold it, stick to your guns. You have an ordinance. Why do you want to flip-flop and change this stuff around? It should be cut and dried. I mean, this is what it is. Make him do it. If he does all this, I don't think anybody would argue. And I love this city. I've been here since 1969. Some of you are sorry about that, but some of you aren't. And I left once, but I came back. It wasn't, but anyway, that's all I had to say. I just like to see you stick to your guns, and I am worried about, and I do have one other little issue on that northwest side there where it comes out to a little point. That's on the north side of my property. That hasn't been, at one time, and this landowner is really a pretty nice guy, but he doesn't mow his grass. And I can take any of you out there any time of day you want to and show you however many rats you want to see. And I'm sick of that. So if this is the way he's going to take care of that, I'm very concerned. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
One last one.
Good evening. My name is Manuel Hinojosa. I live on 1121 Adams Avenue, and I'm one of the residents that lives along the back. So,
Are you by the cul-de-sac back there?
a little bit further down, this way. Cul-de-sac was the last house built on that street.
Okay.
So I have a few comments tonight. First of all, this commission has been entrusted by the citizens of Missouri City to keep our best interests in mind. And like Mr. O'Malley and others have said earlier, we do have a land plan. We have a vision where we want to go as a city, as a community. I think we all recognize that this area is zoned as a LC3, I believe that's what it is. And we realize that it's to our benefit to have commerce and business. We understand that. I was here 5-6 months ago when the other contractor was here, and night and day on the presentations. Don't take that personally, but night and day. But it's interesting tonight, I've heard a lot of deviations to ordinances that, or rules or regulations that this commission has been set forth as important for our city. So I, again, also think that we should stick to our guns, and we welcome the contractor, we welcome the Abrahams into our community. We just want to maintain our community as well. And as you're thinking about these things, the drainage is important, yes. I know it'll be worked out. The traffic thing, it's important, yeah. But community, and when you come home from work, I work in a medical center, I want to come home and relax. So if that's going to be there, I want to see the protection with the masonry fence. I think that's important. And as you're debating this or thinking about this, please do me a favor. Just close your eyes before you decide. Just close your eyes and imagine yourself living there and then waking up and seeing the chain link fence with all the trees and there's already a chain link fence there, trees. So well, it's already there. I mean, I could save some money. My point is, it's our community. It's important to us. That's why we're here. Think about that. Keep that in mind, and stick to your guns. Stick to our ordinances. And I think the Mr. Kelly and his and the owners will do the right thing, and will recognize that as being part of that community, that they will step up to the plate as the other builder did, and did the right thing as well. And we welcome them to that community, as long as they stick to our regulations. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that would like to step to the podium?
I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second to that?
I second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, the public hearing is officially closed. Okay, commissioners.
I want to...
Any comments?
I have one comment. I agree with all of staff's disapprovals. I do. I agree with every last one of them.
I do too. Any other comments?
I do 3.
So do you have a motion?
Is there a motion?
Well, I don't mind making a motion, but I want to make sure that I'm making the right motion. Based on staff's recommendations, it will cover everything that we discussed here on tonight, which would also provide a masonry fence as well. Is that what I understood? Staff did recommend that.
Now, there were several, I must say, several points where you were saying, that's okay, we'll go along with that, right?
I was going to say that there was really 2.
Only 2.
And I think we need to clarify.
They were just dealing with the width of the awnings and the height.
I was fine with that.
And it was only for the, if approved, industrial, warehouse buildings in the back, not the LC3 commercial in the front.
Aesthetics.
Other than that, the rest of our recommendations were to stay with the ordinances guidelines.
Okay, so if my motion was to include going on and forwarding it, as us adopting it as a final reporting, sending it on to the city with it was one more thing, with the concept plan attached.
And we will work with the applicants to get a more concrete plan that shows the necessary detention that they'll have to comport with that.
Okay.
And I second that motion.
All right, let me ask one other question. Scott, in the process of all this now, y'all are going to take care of the detention part. There's going to be a total report to show how all this comes together?
Yes,
and whether or not we can handle this?
On the detention?
Yes.
Yes, and we actually have that report today. Just the concept plan submitted tonight does not reflect what that report shows is necessary.
There was a third one, but it's really based on whether y'all will allow for the change in use. If the change in use doesn't occur, it's really a moot point, and that would be for those industrial buildings to be required to meet the I-1 architectural design regulations, which is basically that's going to require it to be CMU or tilt wall as, right, so it would have to comport with the rest of our industrial, so you see on South Gessner, right.
I was fine with that as well.
Yeah, but that's only tied to if the use is approved, so if it's not, then it becomes a moot point, right.
Okay, we've got a motion and we got a second. Is there any further discussion about this project at all? Speak up. Anyone? Yes.
Just for clarification, since the site plan does show 2 driveways on 90, and we haven't received the okay from TxDOT that both of them are going to be allowed, and the site plan did also show a driveway on Tang City with the truck issue, may I make a recommendation that the motion be amended to also include that driveways be installed in accordance with the city's infrastructure ordinance? That would give us the flexibility to address all that and not have it locked down by what's on the site plan.
Yes,
That's
sir.
excellent.
That forces
Okay.
entry from 90.
Or upgrade to
That's what's in the
Or
current
upgrade
ordinance.
Tang Road.
Oh, that's what
Yeah, we've already
My
got.
apologies, that's what the current ordinance says. They're ahead of me.
For once, just once.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Anybody? John? You okay? Everybody else all right? All right, here are no objections. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, the motion is carried.
Very good.
All right, any further
with it.
items there? We got here 2 more. Agenda item number 10, public hearing and consideration for a zoning text amendment vehicle signs. 10A, public hearing to receive comments for or against proposed amendments to the city's sign regulations relating to vehicular signs. You got the floor.
Would like to.
I would.
Can I go to the podium? Just to irritate you guys?
I don't think
Can
they
I
want
get,
cupcakes.
can I get right behind you?
Maybe they can get some cupcakes on the way out. But hopefully Jennifer has the punch ready.
I second it.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that?
Close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay.
If I may-
10B.
If I may point that after much work, consideration, discussion, deliberation, and other big words like that,
Patience.
we kind of got back to where we started, except we wanted to make it very clear that any changes we make here in the sign portion of the zoning ordinance does not affect section 9.7, which deals with parking business vehicles in neighborhoods or in residential areas.
Okay.
So the little provision at the end of it is saying if it's prohibited someplace else, this doesn't make it good. But here, We're defining what a vehicle sign is. A sign on a vehicle over 9,000 pounds. I'm sorry, I never can remember. I want to say gross carrying weight. And that's not right. It's a gross vehicle weight rating in excess of 6. I'm sorry, neighborhoods are 9,000. Or on a trailer. And basically, what we have talked about and everything we've tried to capture comes down to don't park the thing and make it act like a sign. So we just reduced it to that, rather than saying, oh, you can't park here, oh, you can't park there, oh, you can't park there. And as we tried to draw distances, I began to worry about things you never hear a complaint about. I'll pick on KinderCare across the street from here. Nobody complains about their buses sitting there. They have little logos on the door. Those are business signs. And no, I don't want to capture your car as you're driving down the street either, with the real estate sign on it. There are a lot of, and I don't want to catch the Mary Kay lady with the sticker in the back window. I mean, it's pink, that's enough. But nobody complains about it. And we started looking, if we wanted to throw out, is 75 feet enough? Should it be 100 feet? Should it be 50 feet? And by the time we got through, we realized it depends upon where you are. The issue is, are you parking it to use it like a sign? And so we've fallen back to about where we started, with some minor modifications, hopefully, to make it easier to use. So that's where we are. If you're using it in business, it's employed in business, you're parking it in your parking lot, so you're using it in the business, you're parking behind the building, we probably don't care, we probably won't see it. But if you start parking it right out by the roadway and not using it, now we got a proof issue and we'll have to work developing the evidence for that proof. But that's what we've come back to. This is a preliminary report. We're happy to hear your comments. That's where staff has gotten to.
I like this.
Keep it simple.
It's very simple.
That's right.
Well, I think something follows with keep it simple, and I generally fit there. Especially after last Saturday.
So is it preliminary until it leaves here and then it becomes?
It is preliminary until you see it again next month and
At a
hold another
public
public hearing when it will be your final report, which is consistent with the statute and as we changed the notice provisions in the zoning ordinance. It talks about public hearings, and we've had them on this. And it talks about a preliminary report and a final report. So we're doing our best to comply with everything, and it may drag it out a little longer, but certainly we got a better chance to blow and saucer it.
Now, are we voting on this as a preliminary report going to city council?
As a preliminary report only.
And to
It
call
does
a
not go to
public
city
hearing.
council until
Yeah.
final
All right,
report.
I make a motion to do just that.
And I second.
Okay, wait a minute, we had to close the public hearing.
We already
We
did.
did.
Okay, well, we didn't vote on it.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
You were concentrating on reading.
I was supposed to say that, you know. No, that's fine. All right, do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Seconded.
Got the motion, got the second.
All right, is there a second to it?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Any
sir.
other comments regarding 10? All those in favor? Those opposed?
There we go.
Okay, agenda item number 10 is approved. The last go-round.
Karen, remind me to kill you. We talked about this a lot.
That's right,
To get down
18
to
months
3
ago.
words.
Yeah.
One of these
And it's
days,
only
we're
got,
gonna get it.
it's only got 4 letters and that word signed. We never knew it was such a problem. Okay, agenda item number 11, consideration of an updated report on the land use assumptions and capital improvements plan for the Northeast Oyster Creek
So watershed impact.
subwatershed. Scott?
I didn't read any changes.
We're here again.
You know, we should,
Every October.
Yeah. Again, this is a regular update that we have to do Northeast Oyster Creek watershed. There had been no change. The original warrant was for greater than $3,000 an acre. However, City Council and staff in this commission has previously thought that with the county impact fee on the same watershed as well, that if we increase it to a higher amount, then that would discourage development in the watershed. We recommend that everything stays the same, $3,000 per acre for the impact fee for the watershed on that. So
That's pretty quick. It took me 4 hours to read all this and study it, you know. Okay, do I hear a motion?
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes,
Is there a motion? You got it?
it's been considered
No
and
change.
approved in my mind.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All right, it's been moved and
Let
seconded.
me-
Any further discussion
Let
on
me
this?
draw a line on this. A is consideration so you can make a report to City Council on the report that was recently done on Northeast Oyster Creek, which shouldn't have, I don't think it would take 4 hours to read, although I'm a really slow reader, so it might take me that long.
I'm talking about
But
all this.
all of it comes back on B also. So understand on A, it's just the new report. There's warrant for change, but the recommendation is to make no change.
Right.
All right.
Right.
You want to add that to your motion?
Verbatim.
Verbatim? Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on this thing? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.
No, sir. No, sir, you're not. I'm sorry, you're not. You still have B. And B is all three of them, which is your 6-month review.
Oh, okay.
And there had been no change, and unfortunately, I don't have the magic language in front of me, but you find that, Joyce, help. You find that you consider the professional reports on implementing the capital improvements plan and impact fees and file your semi-annual report on the progress and perceived inequities of such plans. There are no perceived, or there are no inequities in the plans, and we're progressing as we expected to since we're collecting it after the fact, as opposed to some cities that collect it in advance in anticipation of constructing facilities. We're doing it after the fact, so your report is that all's well, no change.
John, you want to add that to your deal?
The all's well part?
Yeah.
Do we need to vote on?
Second to an all as well.
That's my motion. All's well, no changes, or did you actually say deficiency? I don't know, what word did you
That was
use?
inequities.
Inequity. That's such a lawyer word.
All right, we've got a motion, got a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on any of this? All those in favor? Those opposed? Then I say a second time, we are adjourned.
I didn't see any.